with some familiarity with the situation. There was an AED tucked behind a bench courtside. And the physician at that match was unfortunately an orthopedic surgery resident who'd been asked by his senior to, would you go, you get a chance to go watch a basketball game, blah, 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 blah. And the opportunity to, or the facility with, and the apprehension that surrounded a nationally televised event in a massively filled stadium led to the unfortunate delays. In fact, a defibrillator was never deployed in that particular case, and that galvanized attention, but that was decades ago. And still we have the dilemma where systematically we have not got defibrillators in place with people who know how to use them in accordance with appropriate medical training plans. So our approach was sequential, it was tiered, it appreciated the...
So a few months ago, Dr. Jury asked me if I might be interested in attending and telling you about Jordan's story. So really, and the work we've been doing since his passing. So really, I guess we're here is just a practical example of what you're talking about here today. And so if you indulge me, I'd like to talk to you about Jordan, his story, I guess, and what we've been doing to try and make a difference with what happened. So I don't really have a PowerPoint presentation per se. I'm going to be speaking from just some notes I've got prepared, and I'll be ad-libbing some stuff and that kind of thing, and maybe show you a couple of pictures of Jordan so you can relate to maybe who he was, and I'll give you some background before I talk specifically about what happened and what we're trying to do to make a difference. So with that, Jordan, he was the youngest ever of 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. As you can see, he had an interest in hockey from a very young age. He wasn't born with a hockey stick, but he wasn't too far behind. He was the type of kid who enjoyed torturing his older sisters and getting his older brother in trouble whenever he could. So he was on the go all the time. You know, Jordan was bigger than most kids his age, and he was really, really busy. And in fact, he was big, served him well at his athletic pursuits. You know, he played all the kids, or all the sports kids do: soccer, baseball, lacrosse, football, all those kinds of things. But it was hockey he loved. So in terms of who he was as a person, I mean, he was a great son. He was a brother, a friend. You know, his friends would describe him as funny, always trying to enjoy the moment. They always tell you he was extremely caring with a heightened degree of sensitivity for those around him. He included unpopular kids or kids who were left out for some reason in his activities. You know, we're given many, many examples of this after he passed, things we weren't ever aware of. So he truly embraced all and judged none. And as his parents, that's what we were most proud of. So Jordan was very goal focused. As I said, he loved playing hockey. He worked at it really hard to be the best he could be. You know, we did our best to support his love for this, as many of you in here would do for your own kids in their sports and in different activities that they choose to go after in life. So he was always in good health. He was not a kid prone to sickness. He was always big for his age. At 16, he was 6'2" and 190 pounds. So as Jordan got into his teens, he took his physical fitness very seriously. He ate well, very little junk food, really all his life, to be honest with you. He went to the gym regularly with some friends. He was in great shape. Maybe that's just Jordan on a family vacation. But Jordan with Debbie and I, a couple of months before he passed away, on his way to a hockey camp, and then so June of 2013, just a little over 6 years ago, Jordan was thrilled to be drafted to the Acadie Bathurst T10, their Quebec Major Junior Hockey League team, which is part of the Canadian Hockey League here in Canada. It's a big step. We were happy to see that happen for him. He worked really hard, and it was nice to see him achieve a goal of his, and to be able to play for a maritime team, which is only a couple of hours away from home. So he proceeded to train that summer with a professional trainer and a group of professional NHL and amateur hockey players in Halifax. So on August 11th, 2013, Debbie and I loaded up the car with Jordan's hockey gear and drove to Bathurst to take Jordan to his camp. I remember it vividly. It was a nice sunny day, and I remember looking back at one point in the drive. Jordan was in the back seat, and he had his headphones on, as teenagers do, and he was falling asleep, and he was just totally relaxed. He wasn't at all, didn't seem to be at all nervous about the camp and what he was about to embark on. I think he'd done all he could to prepare, and he was ready. So we had a meal that afternoon when we got there, and before he went to camp, it was great. He was relaxed. He was happy. He was all set to go. So the next day, on August 12th, that was the day that changed our life forever. On that sunny Monday morning, my wife and I went to the rink in Bathurst to, like we'd done so many hundred times before in rinks all over Atlantic Canada, to watch Jordan play. And this morning was special than others, of course. It was the first day of the second day of his camp, first training session with his Quebec Major Junior League team. So this was probably the most exciting day of Jordan's young life, a day he dreamed of, for sure. So Debbie and I settled into the stands to watch the practice. After a few minutes, the players started coming out. Jordan did what he always does. He looked up, he found his mother in the stands, gave her a glance, started warming up and going around the ice. So the team went through a few drills that morning, nothing too intense. And Jordan's just kind of casting a glance now and again at his mother. And about 15 minutes into the practice, my wife, Debbie, noticed a player fall at the far end of the ice. I was watching sort of another part of the practice. And anyway, she saw somebody fall, and she asked me to run and see what was going on. She thought it might have been Jordan. So I made my way to the other end of the rink to have a closer look, and I saw a player face down on the ice. And as you do in hockey, you look for a number. As he was face down, it was Jordan's number, so it was Jordan. So panicked, I did what you're taught never to do in competitive sports. I somehow made my way onto the ice, I just couldn't imagine what had happened. When I got on the ice, they were just rolling Jordan over, and I think it was Dr. Dorian that said, when this happens, sometimes players fall hard. He did fall hard. He turned out, broke his jaw. So anyway, they rolled him onto his back, and I just, brief minute I was there, I just held his hand and told him I was there. As you can imagine, he didn't respond, but I didn't know. It didn't register to me what could possibly be wrong. He was 16 years old and never, ever had a symptom of anything wrong. He was in just peak physical condition. So quickly they got me off the ice, and the team trainer and athletic therapist and coach were attending to Jordan. And I met my wife and Debbie, and we were asked to sit in an area sort of away from the ice where the Zamboni usually is, and wait for paramedics to arrive. So, we felt pretty helpless. So we waited what seemed like an eternity, but the paramedics did arrive. It was about 8 minutes after Jordan collapsed. And they apparently had been told en route that what they originally thought was a fainting call they were responding to was a cardiac arrest. We know that because we, many, many months later, listened to the 911 call that was made. So when the paramedics attended to Jordan, the first thing they noticed was that he couldn't have been given adequate CPR. His body armor was still on, his jersey was still on. So how could they have given him adequate CPR? They also noticed that there was no AED anywhere to be seen. So they proceeded to give Jordan 2 minutes get his chest protector off and cut that off him, I guess. So we were told, and did 2 minutes of adequate CPR and then shocked him. That was at least 10 minutes after he collapsed, probably a little bit more. So in the next 25 minutes, we learned he was shocked numerous times, both at the rink and on the way to the hospital. We were at the hospital. At one point, when they put him in the ambulance, they asked us not to go in the ambulance. Somebody else drove us. So we waited at the hospital 15 minutes for Jordan to arrive and couldn't figure out why it was taking so long. It was only a 5-minute drive. Well, it turned out the ambulance stopped every 2 minutes to shock him on the way. So anyway, on that morning, August 12th, 2013, we lost Jordan from a sudden cardiac arrest. Just like that. And we couldn't figure out how could that be. He was young and healthy and so fit. You know, if he had received immediate CPR, in reflection now, immediate CPR and an AED, would the outcome be different? We don't know, but we do know that research shows that every minute that goes by in a situation like this, there's a 10%, I understand a 10% decrease in the survival rates. So 3 months after this occurred, we learned what happened to Jordan in terms of why he had a cardiac arrest. Turns out he had an inherited heart condition called, which most of you would be familiar with, arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy, ARVC for short. We'd never heard of it, much less knew he had it. So I understand it's caused by a gene malformation, if I can call it that. As I said, and we've heard this morning, there was no, and I'm sure we'll hear it some more, there was no history of heart problems on either side of our families. It was the last thing we ever thought would think of. He was always in good health. He was extremely fit. In fact, 6 weeks before the camp, he had a league mandated physical exam. And Debbie and I get comfort out of that. I still remember the notation. I read the exam, the results, and I still remember the notation. Our family doctor, who had been Jordan's family doctor all his life, wrote at the bottom, fit to play. So we thought he was all set to go. Sort of what happened, I guess, in our family after that was that our entire family was put through an extensive screening and cardiac screening and workup, including genetic testing. In the course of that, we learned that my wife's family had ARVC gene, was in her family. And we also learned that our other son actually had the gene, although he's not showing any symptoms of damage from it. Unfortunately, my wife is. So from our perspective, this is the scariest thing about inherited heart disease, especially in young people. Many cases, there's no symptoms. Debbie's never had any symptoms, never realized anything was wrong with her. We had zero family history. So anyway, that began our journey as advocates, I guess, for cardiac screening of, I'll call it elite athletes, their kids who take on intensive athletic training to advance in their sport, and at the same time promote the placement and availability of AEDs and how to use them. So we're doing this as Jordan's family, but also through a foundation, which was a not-for-profit we established after Jordan's passing. So what have we done in the past 6 years? So in December of 2017, 4.5 years after Jordan's passing, and I'll be quite honest with you, a lot of arm twisting and pushing, and took a lot longer than it should, a lot of resistance, but we were successful in having the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League mandate that each team in their league have its own AED, and that 3 team staff are always trained in CPR and AED use. We've never officially been told this, but I think on that day, the AED in the rink in Bathurst was not functioning, was not working. At least that's what we understand. But because of what happened and the society in which we live, everybody's afraid of litigation. We've never really been able to find out exactly what happened that day, other than what we learned through the ambulance report. We also pushed for screening protocol for players in the queue, the basic EKG, and maybe broader physical exam and questionnaire. So that's already been discussed this morning. And I understand that there's a lot of disagreement, shall we say, in the effectiveness of screening. So the league rejected our I guess, request that they implement a screening protocol, citing research studies that claim screening through EKG is not effective. And that's already been discussed this morning. We were, however, successful in having the league significantly expand its questioning and physical testing on cardiac health in the league's annual medical exam. So there's a number of questions that have been added as standard questions for doctors, family doctors that are screening these athletes. So I'll call it a partial victory, I guess, in that regard. We've been pushing for greater CPR and AED awareness and training in sports and in the population and community in general. As you all here know, with a sudden cardiac arrest, there are no second chances. You either have an AED and you can implement a quick protocol with CPR and AED, or if you don't, chances of survival aren't good. So in partnership with our provincial paramedic company, Emergency Health Services Nova Scotia, through Jordan's Foundation, we've created a partnership where we're funding placement of some AEDs in not-for-profit organizations and communities where there's fairly high public access and no ready access to an AED. And I guess the other thing we've done is in partnership with our local hospital foundation, the QE2 Foundation in Halifax, we've had an annual summer hockey tournament since 2014. We called it the Jordan Boyd Celebrity Hockey Challenge. I guess it's not terribly inventive, but it describes what it is. What we do is I guess this past year we had 12 teams come out, and these are mostly beer league hockey players that have a chance to play with some of our local and away NHL players. And we've had great support from a number of professional hockey players that show up each year to help us out. And to date, we've raised $850,000 for the Inherited Heart Disease Clinic and research into inherited heart disease. That's being done primarily at the QE2 hospital through Dr. Martin Gardner, who is well recognized in the field of ARVC research. So we consider this as a family, as a foundation, we consider this to be important, because how can we detect the disease and the conditions before something tragic happens? It's very, very tricky. I know that, and it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but we got to try. So we're hopeful that research will help develop tests and methods to improve early detection. So I guess in closing, I just hope by telling Jordan's story that you can see that healthy and otherwise outwardly fit young adults can and do die from sudden cardiac arrest. And I know many of you already know that here. One thing I have learned, or a few things we have learned, I guess, is that young athletes, especially those doing intense physical training, are at much higher risk of this happening if they have a heart condition. At least that's from what we've learned, and I think Dr. Bagish talked about that already. For the older recreational population, or recreational hockey player population, the beer leaguers or other people that are involved in sports, obviously that risk is higher. But just as an example, practical examples, just this past year, a hockey player from that was playing in a university team in Alberta collapsed after a game in March. He was 23, and he didn't make it. And other more recent examples too include some NHL players, Rich Beverly from the Dallas Stars, 2014, and another gentleman called Craig Cunningham who was playing in the AHL. He's only 27. Both of them survived, but they had immediate intervention with an AED, in both cases within 20 to 30 seconds. So I think that speaks to the importance of the availability of quick intervention in AEDs. So, what happened to Jordan is somebody once, I think, said it's the lightning strike. And it's true, it is the lightning strike. Your statistics show that. But lightning strikes every year. And when we improve the odds of finding these conditions in athletes before something tragic happens, that's our hope. And we're so pleased that you are all talking about this today and looking for ways to make that happen. As we've talked about, there's lots of resistance to screening in athletes, and being a non-medical person, I know there's arguments both ways. So I'm not sure what the right answer is, but please continue to try and make headway on this. And if anything is learned from Jordan's situation and that of others, sports organizations, not just hockey, but sports organizations, facilities, the communities in general need to be ready for lightning. AEDs are so affordable today and they're easy to use. Why wouldn't organizations make the modest investment in AED readiness and CPR training and make it a standard part of their safety protocol? Aren't our kids and athletes worth that? So thanks for indulging me this morning and listening to Jordan's story. As I said in my opening, change is never easy. We've experienced how difficult it is to have sports organizations listen and take this seriously. It took, almost over 4 years to have the QMJHL listen and take us seriously. I've tried to open a dialogue with Hockey Canada and Hockey Nova Scotia. They've listened politely. Hockey Nova Scotia finally took a meeting with myself and a couple people from our foundation advisory board last December. That was 5.5 years after Jordan passed away. And they listened politely. I've had offered to have our foundation provide some AEDs and some training to through the Hockey Nova Scotia organization. They have yet to get back to me, in spite of a couple of follow-ups. So it's hard. It's hard to get people to listen. But anyway, please keep on pushing on this. And if you ever want to learn more about Jordan's foundation or her situation, just feel free to speak with Debbie or myself today, or you can also learn more about Jordan's story at jordanboyd.ca. Thank you very much.